Hi guys, in this video I'm going to go through types of cells, and the two types of cells I'm going to go through is prokaryotes and eukaryotes, and then I'm going to go through examples of plant cells, animal cells and a bacteria cell, and we're going to label it, and I'm going to explain what every part of the cell is, so to give a definition of it. So the first thing that we need to know is that all living things are made of cells, and they can either be prokaryotes or eukaryotes. And the only difference between a prokaryote and a eukaryote is that a eukaryote is more complex type of cell, and the prokaryote is just a bit simpler. And what we need to think about is that prokaryotes are actually made up of a prokaryote. So a prokaryote cell is just a single-celled organism. Yeah, so that's why it's simple. It's only made up of one kind of cell. And a eukaryote are things like plant cells and animal cells. So, and a prokaryote is a bacteria cell. So those are just examples. So if I just write here that this is plant animal cell. So just quickly, we'll go over it. A prokaryote is a simple cell. It is single-celled. And an example of it is a bacteria cell. That is why it's simple, because it only has one type of cell in it. However, a eukaryote is a complex cell, and it has more than one kind of cell in it. And examples are animal and plant cells. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through an animal cell, what it looks like, what it consists of, and what each part of it is. Then I'm going to go through a plant cell, do the same thing, and a bacteria cell. So here is an animal cell, and we can see that it's made up of lots of different parts. And the first thing that we want to zoom in on is the nucleus, which is here. And the nucleus is the part of the cell which contains the genetic material that controls the activities of the cell. So that's the first thing that we need to know. The first kind of part of this animal cell. And these parts are called the subcellular structures. So just keep that in mind. If I just write it in the corner of the page so you remember. So it's just there, here. And the second subcellular structure that we're going to look at is the cytoplasm. And the cytoplasm is here. So it's a gel-like substance where most of the chemical reactions happen in the cell. And it contains enzymes that control these chemical reactions. So it's all this empty part here, but it's actually a gel-like substance. So this is a cytoplasm. So now we've looked at the nucleus and the cytoplasm as the first two subcellular structures of an animal cell. And the next thing we'll look at is the cell membrane. And this holds the cell together and controls what goes in and out. And the cell membrane is this part here, so just the outside of here. So there we have the cell membrane. Now, then there's two more parts of this cell, the subcellular structures that we need to look at. And the first one is the mitochondria. And that's this blue thing I've drawn here. And the mitochondria is where most of the reactions for aerobic respiration take place. And this respiration transfers energy that the cell needs to do work. So that is information that you need to know about the mitochondria. And the last subcellular structure that's inside the animal cell is called a ribosome. And these are where the proteins are made in the cell. And that's these pink dots here. So these are the subcellular structures that an animal cell is made up of. And that is the nucleus, the cytoplasm, the cell membrane, the mitochondria, and ribosomes. And there we have just a picture of it. So just notice how the nucleus is not really in the center, but it's there. And everything is scattered around it. Yeah? So And also, it's not this animal cell is not completely circular. So just note that as well. So that was an animal cell, and what subcellular structures the animal cell is made out of. And now we're going to look at what a plant cell is made of. And an animal cell and plant cell are both examples of eukaryotes. So here is a plant cell, and I know it looks completely different. And the main difference here, so there's two extra things that, actually three extra things that a plant cell has. So if we just annotate the parts that we know from animal cell, we know that the animal cell has these things. They're called the mitochondria. And these ribosomes. Remember that the mitochondria is where the aerobic respiration happens, and that respiration will then transfer energy to the cell that it needs to do work. And then the ribosomes are where the proteins are made in the cell. So those two we need to make sure. And they are also in a plant cell as well as in an animal cell. And we've also got a cell membrane here. And that holds the cell together, just on the inside part. We've also got a nucleus, which is exactly the same as before. It has the genetic material and controls activities inside the cell. So here's the nucleus. And I think that's it. We've got the cytoplasm as well. So we've got cytoplasm in here as well. Yeah? So those are the subcellular structures from an animal cell that are also in a plant cell. However, there are three extra things in a plant cell that the animal cell does not have. And the first thing is a cell wall. So this out here is the cell wall. And what the cell wall does is that it supports the cell and it strengthens it, and it's made of cellulose. So that's the first extra thing that a plant cell has that an animal cell does not have, and it's another subcellular structure. So make sure when you're referring to these, you know that they're subcellular structures and not actual cells. And the next thing that it has is a permanent vacuole, which is this middle part over here. And what the permanent vacuole does is that it contains cell sap. And it's basically a weak solution of sugar and salts. So that's what it is in the plant cell. So just make sure that you know what cell sap is. It's just a weak solution of sugar and salts. And finally, the third thing that's in a plant cell that is not in an animal cell, subcellular structure, is the chloroplasts. Now, these are the green parts here. And they are actually green in the cell, the plant cell. And it's where the photosynthesis happens. And it makes a green substance called chlorophyll, which absorbs the light that's needed for the photosynthesis. So that is what chloroplast does. Yeah. So that is the plant cell and all the subcellular structures that are in a plant cell. The only three that are extra from the animal cell are the chloroplast, the cell wall, and the permanent vacuole. The rest, the mitochondria, the ribosomes, the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, and the nucleus are all the same. And so that the plant cell is also a eukaryote. So we've looked at animal cells, and we've looked at a plant cell, and we've looked at the subcellular structures in them, and we know that these are both examples of a eukaryote. Now we're going to look at a bacterial cell, which is a prokaryote. So here is a bacterial cell, and we can see that, so if here's a cell wall, yeah, here's a cell membrane, and we've also got cytoplasm in here. And what we need to think about is these parts inside. So this one and this one. So this is not the nucleus. Well, it's the other version of the nucleus. So what is actually inside a bacteria cell? It has a nucleus, but it's like a singular. It's a single circular strand of DNA. So it doesn't really have a true nucleus. Now these things here are called plasmids, and they also contain one or more. So these are small rings of DNA. So a bacteria cell can contain one or more small rings of DNA, and that is called plasmids. So the bacteria cell has cell wall, has a cell membrane, cytoplasm, and it doesn't have any chloroplasts or ribosomes or mitochondria. It's just got a single circular strand of DNA and plasmids. And remember, a bacteria cell is an example of a prokaryote. So just a summary of what we've looked at. We've looked at prokaryotes and eukaryotes. We've looked at their definitions. And then we've looked at examples of prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So we've looked at the animal cell. And then we looked at a plant cell. And then we looked at a bacteria cell. Yeah? Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like to hit the subscribe button, thank you very much for watching.